So I'm the third reporter of our group. Our topic is media and globalization. So I'm gonna tackle the critics of cultural imperialism. So critics is when you judge a careful judgment, uh, in which you give your opinion about the good and bad parts of something. So, parang gina-critics mo yung isang bagay, gina-judge mo, but in careful way. And then, the imperialism naman is when you owning something or parang na-territorial ka na, parang ganun. So, ginapakita dito sa report ko na how us na control ng media throughout the time by time. So, proponents of cultural imperialism, the one who advocate the cultural imperialism, ignore the fact that the media messages are not just made by producers, so they are also consumed by the audience. So, in the 1980s, media scholars began to pay attention to the ways in which audience understood and interpreted media messages. So the field of audience studies and emphasize that media consumers are active participants in the main making process. So in this year, ang studied ang nag-study niya na how people in Netherlands react the soap opera of American Dallas. So, parang ginasadihan pa nila na kung paano mag-deliver ng messages sa mga audience. So, yun, it's matter talaga. So, and in 1990, Ellie Hickots and Liebes, so they examined how viewers from different cultural communities interpreted the show. So, American viewers believe that the show thought set in America was primarily about the lives of the rich. So, Russians were suspicious of that, of that shows, like yung Dallas content, believing that Russians believe na yung content daw yun is parang it's American propaganda daw na yun parang ginapalawak niya yung culture nila. So apart from the challenge of audience studies, so the cultural thesis has been believed that by the renewed strength of regional strengths and globalization process. So Asian culture, for example, has proliferated worldwide throughout the globalization of media. So Japanese brand Hello Kitty to the Mario Brothers to Pokemon are now indelible part of the global popular culture. So 'di ba? Parang the more na gina-idolize natin yung something, the more na nagapasok siya sa bansa natin. Tapos yung iba, yung brand natin or yung sariling atin talaga is parang na out of league na, parang nawawala na kasi yun nga parang may pumapasok sa atin na bago. Tapos yun namang mga tao naman, yung tao naman is nakikiuso sa mga trend, kaya yun. Then same din to sa same din to yung sa K-pop or the K-drama, 'di ba? Kung ano yung trend or kung ano yung trend sa dito sa bansa natin, yun yung gina-idolize natin. So that's why na parang yung standards natin sa movie or K-drama, parang gusto natin yung sa kanila. Kaya pag sa atin, ginasabi natin na cliche, cringy, ganun. So yun naga-work yung media na doon, yung paano naga-change yung perspective natin about sa mga gina-idolize natin. Kaya yun yung mga problema sa atin. So that's how media change throughout the time. So that's how media affects our living. So yun. So a world of ideas, cultures of globalization. So telenovelas, so which are wildly successful regionally and globally. So the observation even applies to culinary tests. So the most obvious case of globalized Asian cuisine is sushi. So and while it is true that McDonald's has continued to spread across Asia, so 'di ba? It's so popular na yung McDonald's sa worldwide, 'di ba, yung mga food chain. Then it is also the case that Asian brands have provide stiff competition. So the Philippines naman is Jollibee claims to be the number one choice for fast food in Brunei. So Hello Kitty naman is remains proof of Japan's continued influence over global culture. So that's why yun, the more na trend yung isang bagay, the more na marami tayong feedback na nabibigay sa isang pagkain or iba or ano pa man, madami talagang magtangkilik niyan. Madaming magsubok magsubok kung maraming mga review. Given these patterns, it is no longer tenable to insist that globalization is unidirectional process of foreign culture. So, overwhelming local one's globalization. So, as noted in lesson 1. So, globalization will remain an uneven process. So, it is in and it will produce equalities. So nevertheless, it leaves room for dynamism and cultural change. So this is not a contradiction, no? It is merely a testament to the phenomenon complexity. So yun nga, the more na viral or the more na siya sa media, the more na patok siya sa media, the more na ginatangkilik ng mga tao. So that's why parang yung atin is the more na magtangkilik tayo sa K-pop or sa ibang bansa, the more na magyaman sila. Tapos tayo naman is malugmok. Yan. So that's why nag-change talaga siya throughout the time. Throughout the time pag ma-consume talaga natin yung media, yung social media. So the last one is social media and the creation of cyber ghettos. So by now, very few media scholars argue that the world is becoming culturally homogeneous. So apart from the nature diverse audience and regional trends in cultural productions, the internet and social media are proving that the globalization of culture and ideas can move in different directions. So while Western culture naman remains powerful and media production is still controlled by a powerful Western corporations, the internet. So yun, the more na patok masyado sa masa yung social media, the more na magyaman ang mga Western culture ay ang mga Western cultures. So particularly, no, the social media is challenging previous ideas about media globalization. So yun nga, it's so challenging talaga na yung social media sa globalization kasi parang siya na yung daan paano mag-change yung culture natin. So as with all new media, social media have both beneficial and negative effects of us. So on the one hand, these forms of communication have democratized access. So anyone with an internet connection or smartphone can use Facebook, Twitter for free. So this media have enabled users to be consumers, no, and producers of information simultaneously. So the democratic potential of social media was most evident in 2011, no? Hindi masyado sikat yung social media in 2011. So, during the wave of uprisings known as the Arab Spring, without access to traditional broadcast media like TV, activists opposing authoritarian or and regimes in Tunisia, Egypt. So, in Libya used Twitter to organize and to disseminate information. So their efforts toppled their respective governments. So more recently, the Women's March against newly installed U.S. President Donald Trump. So I began with a tweet from a Hawaii lawyer and become a national event, global government. So yun nga, malaking tulong din yung um, social media sa atin, but meron talagang mga negative effects yung social media sa atin, like too much consume social media can cause addiction. So yun, pero it's if you have self control, you can use social media if you have control to yourself. Social media have negative effects and good effects. So however, social media also have their dark side. So in the early 20s, commentators began referring to the emergence of a splinternet. So, and the phenomenon of cyber balkanization, to refers to the various bubbles people place themselves and when they are online. So, yun. In the United States, voters of the Democratic Party largely read liberal websites and voters of the Republican Party, so conservative websites. So the segmentation is notes an article in the journal Science has been exacerbated by the nature of social media feeds, so which leads user to read articles, memes, and videos shared by like-minded friends. So as such as BNI being on Facebook can resemble like a living in an echo chamber, so which reinforces one existing beliefs and opinions. So this echo chamber precludes users from listening to or reading opinions and information that challenge their viewpoint, so thus making them more partisan and close-minded. So the more na it's ang social media have a dark side. So maraming mga nakatago, pag may makita ka na website, yun, you can read the news, you can read about the politics. The segmentation has been used by people in power who are aware that the social media bubbles can produce a herd mentality. So it can be exploited by politicians with less than democratic intentions and demagogues wanting to whip up popular anger. So the same inexpensiveness that allow social media to be a democratic force likewise make it a cheap tool for government propaganda. So Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has hired armies of social media trolls, paid users who harass political opponents to manipulate public opinion through intimidation and the spreading of fake news, So most recently, American intelligence agency established that Putin used trolls and online misinformation to help Donald Trump to win the presidency. So a tactic the Russian autocrat is likely to repeat is likely to repeat in European elections he seeks to influence. So yun nga, yung social media is parang nagamit ito siya sa political, as in like nagakumpanya, you can, yun, sabi kay Vladimir Putin, nag-hire siya ng armies and nag-hire siya ng mga mag-post about like ganito, about the good side of the political na ginakampihan niya. So social media is a worldwide, parang magamit mo siya sa lahat ng bagay. Magamit mo siya sa political, magamit mo siya sa mga around your, magamit mo siya sa mga photos, mag-post ka. So, yan yung effects ng media. So, pag makita yung ganito, pag makita mo yung isang article na ganito, yun yung paniniwalaan mo. Hindi ka na mag-seek ng iba pa kasi nakita mo na yun, and then ma-spread mo yun siya, yung website na yun or yung article na yun. So magka-cause yun siya ng ganito, ganyan pala siya or ganito. So social media is worldwide talaga. So magagamit natin siya sa political views. May magagamit na siya sa political. So si Putin naggamit siya noon, tapos na-help ay natulungan niya si Donald Trump na manalo sa presidency. So social media is so scary. In places across the world, Putin imitators replicate his strategy for online trolling and disinformation to clamp down on dissent and delegitimize critical media critics of the increasingly dictatorial regime of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan are threatened by online mobs of pro-government trolls who hack accounts and threaten violence. So some of their responses have included threats of sexual violence against women. So social media is nagamit na siya sa mga paninirang puri. It's so scary talaga if someone mad at you. Social media, ginagamit na yung social media. So parang iba na talaga yung way kung paano manira or paano magkumpanya ng isang political na tao or nasa politics. Ginagamit na nila yung social media. So as the preceding cases show, fake information can spread easily on social media since they have few contents filters. So unlike the newspaper, Facebook does not have terms of editors who are trained to sift through and filter information. If the news article, even yung Facebook is wala siyang filter. So even the news article, even a fake one, as consumers of media, user must remain vigilant and learn how to distinguish fact from falsehood in a global media landscape that allows politicians to peddle what President Trump's senior advisors now call alternative facts. So, though people must remain critical of mainstream media and traditional journalism that may also operate based on vested interests, we must also insist that some our sources are more credible than others. So, a newspaper story that is written by a professional journalist and vetted by professional editors is still likely to be more credible than a viral video produced by someone and in his or her bedroom, even if both will have their biases. So as consumer of our as consumers of media, users must remain vigilant and learn how to distinguish fact from falsehood. So in a global media landscape that allows politicians to peddle what President Trump's senior advisors now call alternative facts. So though people must remain critical of mainstream media and traditional journalism that may also operate based on vested interest, we must also insist that some sources are more credible than others. So, we must know kung credible ba yun is kung totoo ba yun or legit ba yun or not fake. So, a newspaper that is written by a professional journalist and vetted by professional editors is still likely to be more credible than a viral video produced by someone on his or her bedroom, even if both will have their biases. So, people must be able to tell the difference. So, if tayo ang nakakaalam kung maniniwala or tayo ang nakakaalam kung fake yun siya or not. So, tayo dapat ang mag-search kung totoo ba yun or not. Tayo na consumers or tayo na nagagamit ng social media ay maging vigilant pagdating sa mga article na ginabasa natin. So, hindi tayo mag-conclude kaagad, hindi tayo magkaklat kasi the more na mag-conclude tayo, the more na mag-iba yung masira yung globalization or yung ganun, mag-iba na yung globalization and then magka-cause ng chaos. So, this dark side of social media shows that even a seemingly open and democratic media may be co-opted towards undemocratic means. So, global online propaganda will be the biggest threat to face as the globalization of media depends. So, internet media have made the world so interconnected that the Russian dictator can for example influence American elections on the chip. So yun, it's so scary, the social media. Yes, if scary sa globalization natin, it will change throughout the time if we use a lot of social media, if na-consume na tayo ng social media. So that's the dark side of social media. Magamit din ng mga ibang mga politician yung social media para magpabango ng pangalan. So the conclusion of this topic, so this lesson showed that different media have diverse effects on globalization processes. So at one point, it seemed that global television was creating a global monoculture now. So it seems more likely that social media will splinter cultures and ideas into bubbles of people who do not interact. So societies can never be completely prepared for the rapid changes in the systems of communication. So every change after all creates multiple unintended consequences. So consumers and users of media will have a hard time turning back the clock. So though people may individually try to keep out of Facebook, so Facebook or Twitter, for example, this media will continue to engender social changes. So instead of fearing these changes or entering a state of moral panic, everyone must collectively discover ways of dealing with them responsibly and ethically. So yun, that's the conclusion.